So the WWE LFG Season 2 finale happened on Sunday. Shiloh Hill ended up winning for the guys, Danny Sikelski for the girls. What did you end up thinking of this season?
I mean, the season as a whole was pretty good. I mean, I like the way that it sort of progressed, and at the end of it, I'm happy with the winners. For the girls, it was kind of up in the air, but Shiloh Hill should have won. And, between Danny Sikelski and P. Nasty, I mean, I was happy with whoever ended up winning in that situation, but I was surprised because a lot of people thought that Xena was an early favorite at the start of the season, and the other girls showed a lot of growth and development along the way, and Xena stayed a little stagnant, I think.
Yeah, she definitely wasn't one of the main focuses this season. P. Nasty pretty much led the entire season, so that was a given. I think Danny was a sneaky pick when you think about just kind of like the underdogs of the whole season. But do you think that Danny truly grew this season, or was it the shift in coach and maybe having a louder advocate was what she needed?
I mean, I definitely think that's an interesting perspective. I don't totally disagree with it. I think a different coach advocating gave her some confidence for sure, but she did show a little bit of a different side. She got a little bit more aggressive. I also think that she got hurt in season 1, so that's part of it, is that she was healthy for the most part, at least as far as we know for season 2, and she definitely showed some more aggressiveness and really started to lay in some of her shots, showed that she could be a heel too. So I think that there was some growth for Danny in this season for sure.
Yeah, actually she killed it as a heel. I was surprised that in the last episode she went back to being a babyface, but I think it shows that she has layers and she's somebody who can just fit into the system right away. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the changes that LFG made from season 1 to season 2, because the seasons were pretty different. I mean, we saw the coach change from Mickey to Michelle McCool. We saw 4 new future greats integrated. We saw Trill London, Hayes Jameson, Summer Sorrell, and Harlem Lewis. Filming felt a bit more like a production as opposed to behind the scenes, which season 1 really felt like you were really getting to understand what somebody fresh to the business was going through.
It felt like a really raw cut, like really, really behind the scenes of a welcoming into the world of WWE. And yeah, this season felt more like it was a production, almost like a show.
Yeah, 100. Like if it was if you thought season 1 was scripted, season 2
definitely
confirmed it.
Yes,
right? Yeah,
100%.
We saw some of the challenges were different. We saw a lot more singles matches. Last season, we saw the factions, we saw the tag teams, we saw mixed tag team matches, which ironically, first episode of season 1, Shiloh Hill and Danny Sikelski tagged together on that first episode.
Right. That was against Tyra May Steele and
Anthony
Luke.
So things came full circle for season 2. We also saw less guest judges.
Yeah. We had season 1, we had CM Punk.
Gunther.
Yep.
Charlotte Flair.
Charlotte, yep. And I don't remember how many. I don't think there were many. Do you remember anyone specifically?
I don't think there were any this season. There was not a single guest judge this season, so that was a big change.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that was big. I also think they had more episodes with crowds in season 2, which I kind of liked. I liked that they had some, maybe just the NXT crowd behind them, but I felt like there were less matches that were just sort of training matches in the background. There were still some, but more of them had a crowd there, and I feel like that helped the energy of the show too.
Well, because those are pre-taped and they're obviously either filmed before an NXT or a live event.
Yep.
Do you think that the fans or people in attendance already knowing the outcome ruins the show in any way? Because I would assume that's probably why they did less to begin with.
I mean, yeah, to a certain extent. I don't remember seeing a whole lot of spoilers, maybe some, but I think that if you do it at the start of like an NXT card, that's sort of like a house show, and it's like a hush hush, like no recording, like that's just for the show afterwards. I think it is tough to do it at some of the other events. Like they had the finale was in Texas, and that was definitely before an NXT show. That's one that's hard to sort of keep quiet because the results, people are there. There's
but
more
the results
fans.
don't necessarily matter, right?
True.
Like just because you win doesn't mean that you're winning that week or you're winning the whole show.
Or that you even earned a point for the coach.
So maybe it honestly doesn't matter. But when you think about how the season 1 winners were integrated into NXT, I wonder if they saw some challenges there and wanted to get them in front of more live crowds so they're more recognizable once they debut.
I mean, that's a good thought. I also think it was strange because of the way that it was sort of talked about in season 1 when Jasper ended up winning, right? And it was an NXT contract and we have a champion that you could go up against. And I feel like there was a lot of pressure and expectations put on that. And Tyra May Steele didn't have a whole lot going on. I don't know if she was injured for a period of time.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it seemed like Jasper got some more time on camera and even a shot at a championship, and Tyra got a little bit more later on. But I think this season it's more about an NXT contract as opposed to an NXT contract, and you could potentially challenge the champion, right? I feel like they sort of leveled that expectation a little bit better.
Well, I guess we'll see, though, because now you have a winner. You have 2 winners who have gone through the LFG system for 2 seasons. So they have much more experience entering NXT. A quick push for either would make sense when you really think about the current landscape. It seems like some of those, I guess, OGs now in NXT are starting to integrate slowly into the main roster. We saw Sol Ruka and Zarya debut on SmackDown. We saw Javon Evans on SmackDown. I believe they're doing the Survivor Series War Games where it's NXT versus main roster. So I think it's the perfect time for them to integrate. And I say you go 0 to 100. It doesn't make sense to bring them in for filler feuds, if that makes sense. They
Absolutely.
need to be a main part of
I
the
agree.
show.
I agree. And that's also why I think it's important to get them more live exposure on maybe some of these earlier NXT cards during the show, because that way they get exposed to that crowd, right? Crowd gets familiar with them. So when they are in the contract and they make their debut and they're on TV that way, right? The crowd reacts to them in a certain way and they already have some crowd energy and hype behind them. It's easier to push it all the way up to 100.
Oh, 100%. And I think Shiloh, out of everyone, maybe other than Sexy BJ Ray, has leveraged the show to his advantage. He's one of the most followed on the roster, and fans love him.
He's such an interesting character. 100%.
Well, that's the thing, is they love him outside of the WWE. Some people follow him for the dark web shit. They don't even really tune into the wrestling stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see how they integrate him into the system. I think one of the things that pisses me off about Shawn Michaels is both times when Shiloh was in the finale, he referenced like needing to be this like imposing figure, like this scary dude or somebody who attracts people. But I don't understand what he's not seeing in Shiloh. Shiloh is the most dynamic character they have. He has so many layers. He's a phenomenal wrestler too. So I don't understand why he said that again. Now, with how Jasper and Tyra, how they ended after the show, like taking all of that into account, should they evolve the prize? Like, should it be an NXT contract? Because if you think about how many people were on the show that were brand spanking new to the Performance Center, it's like it almost doesn't make sense, because you get to the finale and they always say the same thing: I would be doing you a disservice if I let you continue because you're still green. But isn't the whole premise of the show to go to NXT? Like, why have those type of contestants on the show if that's the prize? So should they evolve the prize? Should they bring Evolve into it? Like,
I think yes. I think there are different options. I don't know that like Evolve is something that maybe is okay for some people to strive for in this, but I think that they signed some people that were from Evolve to be on this, right? And an NXT contract, that's what's going to really sell the tickets for A&E. So there's got to be something that people are striving for and achieving. I think the NXT contract is probably appropriate, but I think you're onto something about maybe who's on the show. You can't sort of say, I'm doing you a disservice, I can't put you on NXT if that's the whole goal, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. So, I think this is a natural transition into what do we want to see ahead of season 3. Season 1 and season 2 were so close together that you have to think we're probably going to get an announcement for season 3 soon.
Oh, yeah.
So they're probably already filming. What do you think are some of the things that they need to change?
Yeah, I think they need to be better prepared for injuries. And I don't have a perfect idea, but I mean, having like a practice squad of people that aren't actually wrestling, but are actually with the team, and you have this extra girl and extra guy on your team. So that way, if somebody gets injured, you can have them replaced, and you don't just sort of have one person down, or you have Cutler James come in and be on the show for a part-time. And this season they had more injuries and they didn't replace any of them. So I think they need to do something to change that and be better prepared for if and when people get injured.
Yeah, no, I actually kind of like the idea of having like an extra person for each team, because then you have bodies, right? You have that practice squad, but also could have like triple threats or fatal four ways to end up getting like the final spot.
Interesting.
So I think they definitely need to do something different there. One of the things that I think they need to change is they need to have more experienced wrestlers, right?
Right.
If the show has already evolved from season 1 to season 2 so drastically, season 3 should be more experienced wrestlers. Everyone needs to be at the PC for like anywhere from 1 to 3 years and on, and have already started to get experience doing live shows, because then it'll be more competitive and it'll be less obvious once they get to the end who's going to make it.
Right. And we talked a little bit about this beforehand too, but that also makes for better TV too if you can have better matches. I like the idea of seeing somebody develop from like week 1 and where do they end up after a year of being on the show, right? That's a cool narrative, but it's tough to make it from that very early on starting point. So I agree. You need to have more experienced wrestlers and you can put on a better product. So I think another thing that they need to change is make an update into their point system. It's also just really confusing that there's sort of 2 games going on at the same time. You have the wrestlers who are competing for a chance to earn an NXT contract, but you also have the coaches that are competing for points to win the LFG championship as the coach who got the most points based off of your team, right? So I think they need to update the point system on how points are given out and how many points, and make it sort of clear on the 2 separate things that are happening.
Or completely eliminate the point system for the wrestlers, because it does nothing for them. If you really think about it, they still have to wrestle to get into the semifinals against their teammates. So it's like, if the point system determined that so that they didn't have to wrestle and said, oh, this person clearly had more points, they move on, then it makes sense. But otherwise, just get rid of it.
Right, when they have the sort of face-off at the initial like playoff, when they're sort of eliminating the other team member, it was talked about amongst some of the teams, right? I had 2 points and you had none, right? That's sort of an easy argument, but if the points actually mean something, you're competing against your teammate, but also against the other teams. That's an interesting layer that could make this even more dramatic, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, piggybacking off the point system, they definitely need to change who's giving out the points, because the legends are biased. We saw the fix, right? We saw the husband and wife kind of just like picking each other's people for a while, and then when they caught on, they started voting separately. But if they were to do that, how do they evolve it? Do they make Sean give out the points all the time? Do they have the guests come back and do that? Do they do a live season where it's like fan voting? Like,
do they bring like a judging panel, right? Because I think it gets tricky when you have the coaches who are competing for points also being the judges on who gets the points. Right. It's kind of hard to understand that sell. So yeah, I 100% agree. They need to change on how they're giving out points and who's giving them out. Whatever the decision is, it can't be the same way.
Yeah,
the fix is in.
But since last season, we had quite a few returners. We really only had 4 new wrestlers come into the system.
Yep, small turnover.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the returners we want to see. When going through the roster, I had quite a few, but somebody who caught my eye in particular was Trill London. I think he could benefit from another season. He has some really fun matches. He was doing the high flying thing. I loved his gimmick. You know, Bubba called out the fact that he reminds him of Jeff Hardy, and that's partly probably why I really like him. I mean, who wasn't a Jeff Hardy fan when we were young? Right. So yeah, I'd love to see Trill again on season 2, and I think he'd kill it.
I agree 100%. I would love to see Trill continue. You know, he definitely has that inspiration drawn from Jeff Hardy. I would really be interested to see how he can separate himself, still keep that inspiration, but really identify who Trill London is. I think someone that I wanted to list here is Hayes Jameson. I would love to see her come back. She sort of just bought in to whatever. She dyed her hair pink just to be different and give a different edge. Her promo and her character really developed. I'd really like to see her wrestling sort of continue to progress too, but I think that she was sort of stagnant at the start, and then she really sort of found something when she dyed her hair, but she really took off and just skyrocketed as soon as she made that change and just continued to look better and better every episode.
Yeah, agreed. She's definitely going to be somebody to watch next season to see how she continues to progress. She reminds me a lot of Liv Morgan, and we've seen Liv Morgan progress from Riot Squad days all the way into who she is today. So if I had to choose another returner other than the obvious, Harlan Lewis has to come back. He's the runner-up.
I would agree, Harlan Lewis, and he's one of those early favorites to win season 3.
Yeah,
right?
100%. So I'm sure he'll return. But aside from him, I'd probably go with Elijah Holyfield. I think his season was cut short. Season 1, he was a couple months into
Very
his
early.
WWE tenure, right? So
I think less than. I think he was just like 1 week.
yeah, he was definitely right out the gate when he first came on. And I think we saw him progress in season 2. Then the injury happened. He kind of fell off midway through. They didn't have a backup plan for him for his injury.
Right.
He just ended up falling off, and BJ Ray ended up getting these buys. It kind of worked out in their favor because that's just BJ's character. But nonetheless, Elijah Holyfield absolutely has to return for season 3.
I agree 100% for all the reasons that you just mentioned. I also want to talk about Bailey right now. I would love to see her return. I really don't know how I feel about people being on for multiple seasons. I think that there needs to be some roster turnover and change, but I would love to see her come back for a 3rd season because I think, again, she sort of had some bad luck in this season and ended up with injuring a partner, right? And I think that she sort of lost her confidence a little bit after that, but she was really early on. She's got a really interesting character, and I would love to see her really get a chance to continue and develop and see what she could be. I don't want her to lose the momentum that she had been gaining.
So I actually disagree. And I think when we talk about people who I think need to move on from the show, she's actually first on my list. In my opinion, I think the show's hurting her. She's supposed to be this character who's changing the face of women's wrestling. This is what Undertaker's been saying for 2 seasons in a row.
Right.
This season, as opposed to the first, was a drastic difference in terms of the spotlight. The spotlight was 100% on her. She could have left season 1, disappeared, and popped up in NXT.
And people would have gone nuts.
I think season 2 hurt her in more ways than one. I need her to move on because she is different. She is this imposing character. She could be that different. I just think that we're not seeing it. And yeah, I think she has to move on.
Then I'll counter and say the way that she left season 2, you can't have her just pop up and do the scary gimmick. So maybe she's in season 3 and then leaves mysteriously, right? I would love to see her back. You need to reestablish that character for her. Because I think you're right. Season 2 did her a big disservice.
Definitely. I guess we'll see. Only time will tell. Who else do you think needs to move on from your perspective?
I think that we've talked about this a little bit off the show. I think Anthony Luke is high on my list. I was not a fan of him in season 1. I did like him in season 2. He was different, and maybe that was just because of it was more production and less behind the scenes sort of cut in the season change, the way that they're presenting the show. Maybe I liked him more, but he's ready, and I don't think he needs to be on the show anymore. He's going to take up a spot for somebody that needs a little bit more development to earn that contract. He's ready for NXT. I think throw him in there, evolve at the very least, but I think he's ready for NXT.
No, I agree, but I think if you integrate him into NXT right away, defeats the purpose of the show. The winner gets an NXT contract. Like, do I think he deserves it? Yes, he's far ready for it. But
how does he earn it then? How does he end up on the show?
I think you start at Evolve.
Okay.
So another person that I think needs to move on from the show is Tatiana Dumas.
Yep.
I think we haven't seen any improvement from season 1 to season 2. It would just do her a disservice to do another season of that. You can replace her, bring in a fresh face. I'm sure the 4 newbies are going to return next season. So, yeah, I think I'm ready for her to go.
I agree. I didn't see the progression that I would want to. She did get injured, but even leading up to the injury. She needs more time to develop. So I agree 100%. For me, the next person, I think that maybe you'll disagree with me here, but I think Serena Linton's on this list too. And I think she made big strides and a lot of progress in season 2. But I think that all of the progress that she made in season 2, the change in the persona, the heels change, the wrestling got a little bit better too. She came in very early and very brand new. But I worry that season 3 she would plateau and sort of kill any sort of momentum. I think that I fear she would get stagnant for season 3.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to see. But we talked about the wrestlers. Let's talk about the coaches. The one big change from season 1 to season 2 was Michelle McCool came in. Michelle played a much more involved role than Mickey did. She was very vocal. She kind of stole Booker T's people right off the bat.
Yep.
And we obviously had her husband as the season 1 winner. Do you want to see some stability in the coaches, or do you want to see some changes?
I do want to see some stability, but I do want to see changes too. So I don't want it to necessarily be the same 3 and then Michelle's out, right? She's also the champion, so she needs to come back and defend, right? So I do think that maybe one of the guys switches out. You know, The Undertaker won the belt, but the other 2 guys haven't had the chance to win yet. So I can make a case for any of them to sort of swap out. But I do think that maybe one keeps it interesting and changes dynamics for sure.
Yeah, I'm torn because I think they need stability. I think stability builds the show. And if you think about just some of the similarities that this show has with other shows in pop culture, like The Voice.
I was thinking about The Voice.
What makes The Voice so special is the stability in the coaches. Obviously, over time, they switched and it made it exciting. So I just don't know if LFG is solidified just yet, but I think their stability is going to be in The Undertaker. The Undertaker is going to be like the Blake Shelton of the show. This season, I honestly saw the fall off of Booker T. I think if you're going to replace anyone, he needs to go.
I agree. I think so.
He was very emotional this season. I think he was pretty asked out in the draft because his team was
got completely torn apart. Yeah. And I felt for him. And I also wonder how much of that is production versus like actual, right? And what is the mix, right? But I would be upset if 2 of my people got picked right away. I mean, he ended up with Harlem, so that worked out pretty well for him, but he did not have a very good season 2.
Right. Now, if we did replace him, who do we want to replace him with? We ended up doing an article for the Scrap where we looked into some WWE legends who should coach on LFG at some point. Some of the names on that list were CM Punk. Obviously, he's still active.
Yep.
You have Trish Stratus. She's been
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
We had Sean Waltman, X-Pac, just because he has a lot of ties to mentoring the WWE ID talent.
And that's another really good option.
We had Nikki Bella, who recently returned, and I think the reasoning behind it was she has such a big following. Putting her on A&E would bring that Bella
It would
army
bring up a whole different. Yep, the viewership would go to another level
and
for
she
sure.
would bring such a different perspective in terms of like building the brand to be bigger than what it is. The last one we ended up saying was Natalia. Now, obviously, Natalia is still active, but in the business, she's a legend. She trains literally everyone. You can credit the success of the majority of the women in WWE to Natalia. If I had to pick someone outside of this list, the only person that comes to mind is Tommy Dreamer. Tommy Dreamer right now is the Triple H of TNA. He's such a notable figure in the wrestling business now. Obviously, TNA has the partnership with WWE. It could also give them a little bit of a rub, right? Some promo on A&E on Sundays. Who knows? He might even have talent from his promotion that he might be able to integrate with the show. I think just them doing some of the invasion stuff, it would be a pretty cool addition.